Well, thanks for having me today. I was telling the organizers of our brown bag today that um, this is not a topic that I get asked a lot in my clinic, although I get asked about dealing with lots of different aspects of just life and functioning with narcolepsy. But this is a really important topic because the holidays in our culture, our society is a very unique time. So I'm really excited to talk about ways that you could manage this. So I was just thinking about like what do the holidays involve in our culture, in our society? And thinking about, for someone with narcolepsy, with hypersomnia, things are sometimes just revolving around sleep and rest. But during the holidays, there's so many different things. There's social connections, family connections. There's juggling a lot of tasks, gift giving and parties. There's usually travel involved for a lot of us when during the Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year season. Um, there's decorating. I know people take decorating very, seriously sometimes, and they feel like that is a very important part of the holiday season. Gift giving, giving the right gifts, spending enough on gifts, stressing about budget about gifts. And this is a lot. There's a lot to converge all on like basically 1 to 2 months of time. And it's a very unique time of the year for I think everyone. Um, and I don't want to talk about hacks or tricks or ways to overcome narcolepsy symptoms during this time. I want to take a step back and talk about exploring what this season really means for you as an individual, to start to get you to reflect on what this season means for you as an individual. Why is it important? Why do you do the things that you do for the holidays? Because I think managing someone's symptoms with narcolepsy, really should come back to what's the root value? What's the value of being alert and awake during the day? What's the value of getting good sleep at night? So we're going to take this like all the way back to what is valuable about the holidays. So I want to start with, and I'm going to exit presenter mode here so that I can write this down. If you all want to put in the chat, what is valuable to you about the holidays? And I'm going to write down some of the answers that people give. What brings you joy? What is the thing that you look forward to in the holiday season? Or the biggest event for you? All right, so I'm just going to write some of these as I go along. Let me actually, oops. So we got family time, relaxation, lots of time with family, eating good food. That's a good one. Religious observances. That's a good one. Seeing grandchildren, sleeping in, yeah. Candlelight service. I'm guessing that's a religious service. Candlelight service with family, church events. These are all great. I think it's important to take a step back and reflect on what's what do you enjoy about the holidays? And think about values. So when we talk about values, if you've heard me talk about um, values before in a talk, you might be familiar with this idea that values are our compass. Values are the things that we don't necessarily, we can't check off a list. We can't say, I'm done with this, I've completed it. It's kind of the compass, the direction that we're going in our lives. So giving you some ideas about what values are, and then what actions are or behaviors are that might reflect or align our values. Actions are things you can kind of check off the list, but values might be family, faith, religious observances, giving. I'm talking about values that sort of coincide with the holidays here, or rest. And certain actions might be for family, traditional events that you do with your family, holiday meals together, cooking or baking for one another. Faith might be attending services, certain prayers, certain going to certain events at your church. Giving might be gifts to friends and family. It might be volunteering, community care. It might be things that you do for your for a religious service, maybe not just attending, but things that you do to help the community that you're a part of. And rest, I'm glad that someone pointed out rest. I know rest is important to me during that week off that I get. I always come home to my parents. My family's from Florida, so I'm always traveling to Florida, and they're like, "What are your plans for this week?" I'm like, "Nothing. Just gonna sit here and talk to you guys." So sleep and solitary time and getting just a break maybe from work or the regular day-to-day life. So I wanted to pose some questions as you think about what your values are. So if your values are family, faith, giving, rest, thinking about what those things are and what the actions are associated with them. I wanted to pose some questions to consider when you're considering exploring your values, why these things are important to you. Because I think especially around the holiday times, we are often doing a lot of actions that maybe don't align with our values. When our actions don't align with our values, when the things that we're actually doing don't align with what's important to us, that's what causes distress. And when we work with people in psychotherapy for all different reasons, not just for narcolepsy, but for all different reasons, when what's important to someone, what their values are, isn't aligned with what they're actually doing in their actions, that's what causes a lot of distress or discomfort or dissatisfaction in life. So let me pose some questions to you, and these are not necessarily to answer out loud or in the chat, but maybe just for you to think about yourself. Are your values central to you, or are they to please others? And sometimes the latter is okay. Sometimes we do things in the holidays that are family traditions or religious traditions that maybe aren't central to us. Maybe they're not our values, but they're a family value or they're a community value. And sometimes that's okay, but sometimes it's not okay. And understanding, are the things that I do, the values and the actions, that the values I have and the actions that I take, are these really important to me? or are they important to someone else? And if they're important to someone else, is that something that is necessary for me to engage in? What events are most meaningful to you? So when you think about the holiday season and you think about all the little events, there might be a work party, there might be like a recital at your kid's school, there might be other little family parties or neighborhood parties or friend parties. There might be a certain tradition that your family likes to do together. Think about what events are most meaningful to you out of all of the busy things that we're asked to do during the season. Also thinking about what events are important to your family, your spouse, your kids, the people in your life that most people said in the chat that family is meaningful to them. Is there something that is meaningful to your family or your spouse or your kids that maybe isn't meaningful to you, but you want to participate in it because your meaning is really the happiness of the family, or to be together as the family? Think about what event or experience you cannot live without. I think this helps clarify what is most important to you. When you think about, if I didn't do this, how would I feel? Is there one particular experience, day, event, or time with people that if you didn't attend or didn't go, you would be disappointed, or it wouldn't feel good? Think about, do you need to use the holiday season for an actual break? This is something I don't think we consider a lot, because for most people, the holiday season is very busy, especially if you do have kids or a family, or you're traveling, or you've just got a lot of things going on. Do you need a break? And what does that break look like? Does it look like extra sleep? Does it look like naps during the day? Does it just look like solitary time? Time to do what you would like to do, or just spending time with yourself? Does it mean just not working? I can do whatever anyone wants me to do, as long as it's not going to work. What does a break look like for you? For some people, a break is they're an extroverted person, right? So when we talk about extroverts versus introverts, it's not about how social you are. It's about where do you get your energy from? Do you get your energy from socializing, from being with people, from going to events? Or do you get your energy from being solitary, or having quiet time, or being introspective? And so it's okay if you're an extrovert and you like these events, that these events feel like a good break for you. So when you think about those events, some more things to explore. Why are these events or actions important, and how do they align with your values? So, if spending time with family during the holidays is your value, what events or actions align with your values, and what is in the right category but maybe not aligned? So, like, some examples: maybe opening gifts together on Christmas morning is an event that's the event that you don't want to miss. Opening presents with your family Christmas morning. And that's the event that you said, absolutely, I can't miss. That aligns with my values. I get to see people opening gifts and being happy and enjoying the gifts that I got them. And it's, that's my warm, cozy family time together. And that aligns with my values. Events like, some people will say, I'm with my family, and I'm in charge of making Christmas dinner for everyone, or I'm in charge of making the holiday meal for everyone, and I have to cook everything. And that is for my family, and that does align with my values. But am I really spending time with my family when I'm kind of stuck in the kitchen doing that activity? So it's sort of like in the category of a value, a family, that value of family. But does doing that really fulfill that time with family? That might be more of like a value of like giving and like an act of service is preparing the meal for your family. Your family may cook that holiday meal together, and that is something that's very, very valuable. So thinking about like what events that you normally do and how they match up to the things that are valuable for you is a really good reflection. And so thinking about, does this feel like a priority that is aligned with my values? Or is it an obligation? Do I feel obligated to attend this certain event, cook this certain dish or certain meal? Again, it's okay if sometimes it's the latter, right? If it's an obligation, and you want to fulfill that obligation. There should be no shame in that. But if you're trying to pick and choose what you want to put your limited energy towards in the holiday season, I think it's important to sort things out in this way of what's really, what events are really fulfilling the values and the importance of those values for me, and what events can I maybe take a step back from, excuse myself from, or not graciously not participate in. So as you're maybe contemplating everything that I just said, I wanted, just for you to take a second to get a quick check on your emotions. How did it feel to just start to contemplate this idea of alignment or perhaps misalignment of your values and your actions in the holiday season? So just take a second to put a word or put a couple of descriptions to how it made you feel or how you felt doing that. For some of you, it may have felt natural to think about your actions and your events during the holiday in this way. For some of you, it might have felt unnatural. You might have felt a sense of conflict with what you want and what's expected from you. It's important to reflect on that. Does it make you feel nervous to start thinking about saying no to things or turning down things? Or does it Does it make you nervous to start thinking about all of the things that you have to do or attend during the holiday season? So what do you do once you have figured out what's valuable for you? What do you do next? And that's what I'm going to talk about. That's what I'm going to talk about next is when we identify our values, the next step is something we call committed action. So pursue what's important to you based on your values. And so just an example, if your value is spending time with your family during the holidays, a valued action would be like, I want to attend a late afternoon Christmas dinner with my family. But maybe your hypersomnia or your narcolepsy fights back and says, you need to protect yourself. You need to take care of your symptoms first. You usually get sleepy in the late afternoon. So you can't do late afternoon plans. It's very black and white. And the result is sort of the narcolepsy or the hypersomnia wins. Like the narcolepsy becomes the value, and the committed action is taking care of doing everything I can to manage my symptoms. Committed action towards the value of spending time with the family might look like, the conversation in your head might look like, okay, the dinner's in the late afternoon when I'm usually the sleepiness. I'll ask if we can change the time. If the time can't be changed, I'll plan to rest in the morning or nap midday. I'll time my stimulants right. I'll ask my parents, again, just an example, I'll ask my parents if there's a private space I can go to in their home if I need to rest or sleep while I'm there. Because the value is spending time with my family, and the committed action is attending this Christmas. And it's not that I have to ignore how my symptoms affect me, but I would like to live parallel with them instead of letting my symptoms guide my behaviors and my actions. Now, sometimes it's very difficult to, say I'm not going to let my narcolepsy symptoms guide my actions. I'm not saying that that's, 100% inconceivable, and I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. But I'm saying when you're thinking about what's valuable to you, especially during this season, when you think about what's coming up that, I can't do without, how do I live parallel to that? Because it's through committed action that we actually get to live and breathe our values. How do we do this? Really a lot when I was reflecting on, how do we live our values? How do we commit to committed action? A lot of, I think it comes down to setting boundaries, which is a very trendy thing to say, is a very TikTok-y thing to say, is right. It's like, we got to set better boundaries with people, but how do you do that? Like how, what even, like, that's the question that comes to mind, is how do we set boundaries? Because I think a lot of identifying your values and setting committed action means that you have to set boundaries for yourself. So internal boundaries, but also external boundaries too. You have to set boundaries with other people and other things in your life. A lot of what we talk about when we talk about boundaries comes down to assertive communication. So we just wanted to run through these 4 different types of communication styles. So there's 2 valences here. So there's openness of communication and there's consideration of others. So openness of communication is like honesty. and being honest with the other person and yourself. And then high consideration of others is, or consideration of others is how you respect other people. So the first one here is being passive. So being emotionally dishonest, indirect, apologizing. I'll go alone with it despite my feelings. I don't enjoy going to midnight Christmas mass with my mom, but I'm not going to challenge that. I'm going to put my feelings away. You know, this is what she wants. I'm going to do that. So it's a high consideration of other people, but a low on honesty and communication. And then the kind of opposite of passive is being aggressive. So being aggressive has a high honesty level, but a low consideration of others. So inappropriately honest, attacking, blaming. You know, I'm intentionally showing that my needs are more important than others. And if you just like imagine going to any retail store in the holiday season, you're going to see these people who are very aggressive with store employees or other customers, right? But certainly we have people like this in our family, or sometimes we can behave, you know, everyone is open to behaving this way. And so you're very honest, but you lack respect for the other person or other people. Now, somewhere in the middle here is what we call passive aggressive. So passive aggressive is being emotionally dishonest and indirect. It's both self-denying and self-enhancing. So I'm covertly showing that my needs prevail. So when I think of holiday passive aggressiveness, you know, I think of someone making comments about the food that you prepared, or the way that you look, or, you know, we all have relatives who think it's appropriate to make passive aggressive comments on what we're wearing, what we look like, what we're doing with our lives, you know, those relatives that you see once a year for their holiday gathering. And they might kind of be emotionally dishonest and indirect with you, but they also are saying maybe something aggressive and mean-spirited to you. Now, what we're trying to go for in our communication style with people is being assertive. So assertive means you have a high consideration of others, but also a high openness of communication. And I would say in addition of a high consideration of others, you have a high consideration for yourself. You're appropriately honest, direct, you're empathic to everyone involved, including yourself and all emotions involved. We both in this situation have needs and rights. It's important to understand when you're practicing assertive communication, this is not a way to persuade people. This is not a persuasion technique. It's not a way to get what you want or get your way. It's a style of communication that allows you to be honest and respectful. And unfortunately, sometimes being honest and respectful doesn't lead to the outcomes that we want. But we can walk away from the encounter or the situation knowing that we did the best we could and we handled the situation appropriately. So what I came up with is some boundary setting examples for lots of different things in the holiday season, where you could take any one of these styles of communication you could use for this boundary setting, but hopefully you would think about how to do it assertively. Okay, So time, you're, I basically set this up into different things that you could set boundaries for, different aspects of your life during the holiday season. So time, like your time is very valuable. You're being pulled in lots of different directions during the holiday season. Um, and you might be asked to go to things that you just physically can't because of the time commitment, or because of how you manage your narcolepsy symptoms. And I think time is such a huge consideration when it comes to managing um, narcolepsy, and you want to be respectful of that even during the holiday season, because you likely know what works for you in terms of time management, or what doesn't work for you in terms of time management. You likely know what time of day is best for you, what time of day is not your best. Um, and so setting a boundary in an assertive way might sound like, we have a lot going on that day already. We can't attend that party. I can come to that event, but I have to leave by this time. So being assertive about your time, your physical space, um, what kind of physical space do you need? How do you be assertive about your physical space? So, um, if you're comfortable, you're going to an event that's going to last all day. Let's say you're going to your family's home for an all day event. you know, um, is there a space I can go to rest? And asking the host of that event, is there a space I can go to if I need to be by myself for 30 minutes to just maybe lay down or rest? Um, One thing that comes up a lot, and I didn't realize this, but this comes up a lot with patients, is being assertive about not staying at a family member's home as much as they want you to stay at their home. They might want you to sleep on an air mattress in the living room and share a bathroom with 10 other people who are staying there. So being assertive about your physical space and what you need to feel your best, whether that's narcolepsy related or not. When we visit, we're gonna visit and we're gonna spend a lot of time with you, but we're gonna stay at a hotel. It's what's best for us and our comfort. And it has nothing to do with how I feel about being here or being with you or spending time with the family. It has to do with our comfort and our respect for our physical space. Um, so emotional boundaries, these are probably the hardest ones to set. I know that holiday gatherings can be rife with tension when you are seeing family members you maybe don't associate with normally, or you have conflict with. It's being assertive would not be, don't say that to me. Being assertive would say, I feel uncomfortable when you say this. And expressing it in I statements instead of you statements. It does set a boundary, and it allows that person to maybe make a change in the direction that they're going when you assert how you feel. So certain topics, I think when we think about the holidays, we think about politics and, arguing with your uncle over something that you disagree with politically. I think thinking about your health status and narcolepsy and symptoms, I think, you have to be introspective and think about, how comfortable do I feel talking about this? Maybe maybe my closest family members know what I deal with, like, very intimately on a day-to-day basis, but not everyone needs to know. If you have a new diagnosis and maybe you do have concerned family members who just want to know how you are, maybe, they're gonna ask questions. And some people it's not malicious. It's just, it's they don't understand that they're being rude, but that's why you have to set a boundary. So saying to, maybe you're the hosts of the event you're going to, you say, please let's not discuss my health or narcolepsy. My health is not going to be the topic of conversation at the dinner table with other family members present. And can you help me divert that if that happens? So food and drink, and I think when you're dealing with a chronic health problem, like narcolepsy, where maybe certain food or drink is not good for you, or you're trying to stay away from it, just saying, thank you, I'm full. Thank you, no, not needing to explain why. You don't need to go into, well, I'm taking all of these medications and this is why, I don't drink alcohol. If that's acceptable disclosure to you, that's great. But don't feel the need to, give everyone all of that information. I've never been an alcohol drinker, and I thought, maybe once I got out of my 20s, I would stop getting people haranguing me about not having a drink at an event or a party. But now I'm in my 40s, and I was like, wow, people still harangue me about not having a drink at a holiday party or a special event. And so just no is a complete sentence. You can say, you don't need to say anything more. Hosting, many of you might be the host. You might be the person you might be the nucleus of the family or the person that is asked to host, and asking for help. I can host this year, but I need you to help with X, Y, and Z. Or if you feel like you can host, but there's certain you will do and you won't do. Respect. If you do have conflict with family, but it's important you to be with family, but you have conflict with family. Setting that boundary, I think before you get to the event, in maybe the months or days leading up to the event, setting the stage for, your expectations for respect, and saying the boundary set is, if we can't be treated with respect, we can't attend family events anymore. That's a really hard one to set. And again, might feed into your need that family is important to you, but you might feel obligated to be there no matter how you're treated or spoken to or involved in the family. And that's a hard boundary to set. But no is, like I said, no is a complete sentence. No. No, I'm not going to do this. No, I can't make this work. I think we all err on being on the side of respectful and self-deprecating and, again, passive aggressive. Maybe telling little white lies about why we're not doing certain things, but no is a complete sentence. More boundaries. Again, about physical rest or physical space and rest, explaining that, when I need to rest, it's not because I want to be away from you. It's not because the family bothers me. It's not because I need a break from you. I need a break from things. Again, with help, don't be a martyr. Don't be the one who spends all day in the kitchen and doesn't get to talk and socialize because you're kind of working on that big meal that everyone expects and you're making all the dishes. I think of that episode of Friends, I think it's in the first season, where everyone wants Monica to make the certain type of mashed potato dish that they like, and she's running around like a crazy person trying to make like 5 different types of mashed potatoes, and then everyone is to ditch the party after she's made all of their, like, don't be a martyr. Don't do things because you feel like you have to, and you have to be that person in the family. Your needs and comfort are just as important as others. Got a really good tip from a person with narcolepsy about waiting 24 hours to make a decision to accept or decline plans. Thank you, Matt, if you're here. This is a great one, like being respectful on the boundaries on your time. I think a lot of people feel this way. They make plans, and then when it's time for the plans, they're like, whoa, I can't like physically do this. So not saying yes right away, not saying no right away, saying, I really thank you so much for this invitation. I need to think about whether or not I can do it, and what else is going on. Boundaries with your travel, like I was saying, hotel versus house. Ensuring that your meds are filled and packed and you're not leaving them behind, and you're not going to need a refill in the middle of the week that you're away. Also thinking about physicians' holiday schedules. This is less of a boundary, more of just a concern. I know from our office is people need refills right away, and it's the 23rd of December, and maybe no one's, we, like, in our clinic, we have coverage for everyone all the time, but maybe not as fast as you need it to be. And of course, with a lot of the medications for narcolepsy, they're controlled substances. So if you're out of town, if you're not in your normal place, the doctors may not be able to get those medications to you. So just being mindful about, like, if I have to travel, am I set up? If you wear a CPAP as well, making sure that you're all set up to bring that with you on travel. Of course, gifts and avoiding overspending, creating a budget. Again, thinking about, like, how does gift giving align with my values? I think disclosure is a big one. This is what I talk to my own hypersomnia and narcolepsy patients the most, is when is disclosure right? Does it make sense to disclose to this person? What's the value of disclosing to this person? I wrote, does the auntie you see once a year need to know about your health? Maybe yes, maybe no. How can disclosure be helpful for you? Balancing, like, the need to explain to everyone what narcolepsy is and all the things that you've been going through. Maybe that's not important, but maybe it is important to explain, like, I have this condition. It means I have to take breaks. I might be going into another room, coming back. It means I can't do everything that you have planned. So disclosure could be helpful in setting boundaries, but gosh, there's just really no, like, black or white ways to do that. I think each individual has to think about that and how that's going to be beneficial or harmful for them. And then grace and compassion for yourself and for other people. If you choose to not disclose to a certain family member, having some grace and compassion for maybe them not understanding, and that's okay too. Is if I don't want to tell them anything, but then they might make comments about, hey, where did you go? Why didn't you do this with us? Having some grace and some compassion for other people. And of course, you're going to run into, again, people not understanding what this condition is, what the reality of it is. They might have a very facile or Hollywood idea of what it is. Again, this time of year, it's like you're meeting with family that you may only see once a year, once or twice a year. And they want you to catch them up on everything. And you might be having a really hard time, but it might not be appropriate to tell them that over dinner. So having some grace and compassion for the other people in our lives as well as ourselves. One last thing about boundaries. You shouldn't need an excuse to set boundaries, right? I'm talking about all of this in the sense of, or in the context of narcolepsy and hypersomnia and the symptoms that people experience with hypersomnia and narcolepsy. You don't need an excuse to set boundaries. Like I said, no is a complete sentence. Being assertive, asking for what you need, and expecting respect, it's not something special that you need because you have narcolepsy. I think all of these things I went over today could apply to really anyone. But you don't need, and like, again, with disclosure, you don't need to explain everything about what's going on in your life in order to set a boundary with someone over the holidays. Your needs are important, but they're not more important than others. And I think that's what assertive communication is really all about, is my needs are important. They're not more important than respecting you and having a good, having a respectful interaction with you. All right, and that's all I have. So we have some time for questions. Oh, I wanted to show, this is my holidays usually. So I'm with my dog, Banana. Usually our hardest thing is that we fly from Cleveland to Florida. And I take her once a year down to Florida, and it is quite a challenge to carry her through the airport. I'm always wearing gym clothes in the airport because it's quite a workout. And last year I got to meet Santa Bucky at Buc-ee's in Florida. That was the highlight of my my Florida Christmas last year. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, please. How do we set boundaries at the airport? Anything specific that you're thinking of when you're like at the airport, that you would like, any specific situation? Like, I can think of being with just being with your family, and that could be like stressful, like hurting your family through the airport, or needing to rest between flights. Was there anything specific that you thought there? I think thinking about your like the whole process of getting ready to board, I think thinking about the processes at the airport, and how you're going to react. It's like maybe doing a little, what we call like visual imagery, almost like we encourage like athletes to do. Like, let's envision the start of this game. Let's envision running through the plays, envision, okay, how am I getting to the airport? What is that process like? So I'm going to drive to the parking lot. I've got to take the shuttle to the ticket counter. When I get to the ticket counter, I need to check my bag. There could be a line because of the holiday travel. I might have to stand in a long line. How am I gonna, if it's if it's a certain time of day, how am I going to handle that? If I have a family member with me, can I go sit down while they stand in the line? Thinking about, going through TSA, where, like, looking at the airport map, where am I going to have to walk? Um, and, because ahead of time, you can probably see now on most apps what gate you're going to be at. So you could look at that ahead of time. I think just knowing, um, I just think understanding the expectations for what the day's going to look like when you travel is probably the most helpful, even if you don't have an answer to those things. What about using priority seating options? You know, that could be really helpful. I could see how that could be helpful if you get on to the plane or the train earlier, if that's going to limit your stress, or you can sit down earlier, you're not standing in a line longer. If that's going to be helpful for you, then that might be a good trade-off. On their limits on traveling long distances, if I experience severe sleep attacks that you're aware of traveling alone. I mean, certainly if you're driving, that's something we didn't talk about, but driving long distances over the holidays, when you have narcolepsy or hypersomnia, that could be potentially very dangerous. And so knowing yourself, knowing your limits, making sure you have if you're taking a stimulant medication, making sure you have it. I would say, planning out, again, looking at the route that you're going to take. This is where I can stop. These are all the stops I can make. This is where there's a rest stop or a coffee place or whatever you would need to do to rest. I would say, drowsy driving is so, so, so dangerous, and do not push through drowsy driving just to get somewhere on time. Again, setting expectations, maybe if you're driving in to go see family, telling them, hey, I might not get there at the time that I planned because I have to stop. Sleep attacks when you're flying, if you're traveling alone, yeah, I mean, that might cause issues if you fall asleep at the gate, and you might miss your flight. Certainly you're not going to be left on a plane. They will wake you up if you don't get off the plane. But the thing I'd be most worried about is driving. To use public identifiers of any kind when traveling, like communication cards, hi, I have a disability, sort of things. I haven't heard about people doing that for narcolepsy. Particular, I've seen people do it for other disabilities, or I'm thinking of like yeah, for people's disabilities that could be disruptive to other people. Again, I think you have to think about it as what's the value of doing that, and what's the outcome that you're looking for. If you're in a certain situation where disclosing that is going to be valuable to you, or valuable to you and helpful for someone else, yes. I could see you maybe doing that preemptively for family. If you have if you're going to a family event where you want people to know what's going on, but you don't necessarily want it to be the focus of the family event, is sort of preemptively reaching out and saying, hey, this is what's going on with me. You may or may not know. Just briefly, this is what it means. Using the materials that Wake Up Narcolepsy and other organization has to explain to other people. Yeah, there's the sunflower lanyard. Someone said about the sunflower lanyard that is available in airports. I'm not sure if that's universal, if every airline staff knows that. Um, um, but yeah, I think thinking about how it can be how it would be helpful for you, for the people around you to know. um and if you have any concerns about your health, like one person said in the chat, I have a dog tag, I have one on my keys, one on my neck, to let people know, in case you, like, for example, if you have a sleep attack and you're fat, very sleepy, and maybe, not communicating coherently, or some, you're worried about, people interacting with you, maybe having that available, so people know, you're not having a medical emergency necessarily. This is the reality. This is just their everyday reality.